Hey guys, it's Mystical Storms here again. It's almost 2 a.m. I got a bit of cleaning in real quick, so that's good. And now I'm recording one last chapter before I upload a few up and I go to bed. So I skimmed it a bit this chapter because I was generally curious what the fuck did he get himself into. Was expecting but not expecting this. So I hope you guys were waiting for this because now it's out. So this is chapter 6, the accidental finding. So chapter 6, the accidental findings, and I hope you guys enjoy. It's a pleasure to meet you again, Yami. Nice to see you too, Jiren. Izuku sat down at the same crate, crossing his legs once again. It was very much looked like the kid he very much looked like the kid he was. Jiren looked the same as last time, smoking a cigarette, the freakish smile still on his face. I presume you come with some answers. Jiren's eyes glint, and Izuku had to suppress a shiver that wished to rack his body. He should have taken up Dabi's idea of going to get her again, but it wasn't good for business to have unwanted ears. Especially with what Izuku had in mind. Would it kill you to be so creepy? He absolutely hated informers, but he had to give it to him because he was good at his job in similar way to Izuku. They both gave information for some price and got rid of people in different ways. But that betrayed them. Izuku definitely had a long way to go to catch up to Giren's years of knowledge and experience. No matter how good he was at getting information, nothing could beat experience. But he wondered why him over Jiren. Why was he, a kid, trusted more than an informant who has been working for the past 9 years and 7 months? It didn't make sense. Still humorous as ever, I see. Jiren chuckles, the sound echoing through the room. Yeah, no, Izuku wasn't a fan of that. Only the best. He wrinkled his eyes in a mock smile, although he was anything but smiling. As much as he didn't want to meet Jiren again, he kind of had to. He wasn't entirely sure if he could take the deal yet. There was too little information known to him, and he disliked going into things blindly, especially with something as dangerous as this. He had enough experience to know when to fight and when to run. He knew that not everyone was familiar with Yami as a teenager, because he tended to show his face when some deals were more personal than others. He had to gain trust by showing his true self, yet the fact that he was a kid wasn't that known. Everyone knew Yami, the name, but they didn't know him as a person. Let's get straight to the point, Giren. I have questions before I can give you an answer. He watched Giren shift in his stance, giving a few more relaxed ones as if he had won the cash already. Izuku clicked his tongue. I'm not sure if I'll be able to answer all of them, but go ahead. Giren chuckled, but Izuku smiled. You had this. Oh no, you will because your quirk allows you to have the upper hand in these types of conversations. Giren's quirk was definitely interesting and very useful in the world they live in. Someone has been doing the research, I see. Of course he had. From the quick search just after his meeting to a 7-long study of information on Giren, he knew everything he could. His name, quirk, status, and a family. You name it, he knew it. He knew of Giren's recent deals, knew of his trusted acquaintance. He knew how the villain operated. It wasn't easy to find after months and months of researching for information from places he shouldn't be. Hacking, albeit somewhat simple, was things Izuku picked up. Files in modern society weren't as scripted as everyone believed. The only information that would harm society had those hard firewalls Izuku would never dream of getting past. He tried once and had almost thrown his computer up before government came knocking to his door. I come prepared. He untackled his legs, swinging them over the side of the crate. Then let's hear what you have to say. Right. Izuku nodded and let's get down to business. Who's asking for me? Who isn't Yami? Half the underground wants you in their clutches. That wasn't anything new. Izuku knew half the underground world asked for him all the time, and he knew his word. But Gurren, for the love of God, please be cooperative. Certainly, he chuckled. Though it only got on Izuku's nerves. He'd rather be out there as soon as he could. He had other things to do, like homework. He had been neglecting it for the past 5 days, and no one has to know about that. Teachers already berate him about that enough as it is. He wasn't a bad student, just busy outside of school. Not that anyone really taught what a little quirkless shit like him would do outside of school. Gurren took a long drag of his cigarette once and dropped a smile. Eyes taking a glint Izuku wasn't familiar with sometimes. Old man who thought life was funny, getting serious was the most dangerous act one could come by. Simple informants weren't an exception. More often, they could wreak bigger havoc than those who had a shit ton of strength. There's a group following the old belief, not like the new gangs. No systematic order. He took another drag from cigarette. Yakuza? Izuku pulled out his notes. He writes it down. That would be it. I only know of one Yakuza that is influential enough. She has Hassaikai. Izuku twirled the pen in his hands, watching Gurren chuckle. He didn't like this chuckle. Dear, you have an answer. Why would the Shie Hassaikai need him? Of all people, he doubted that Yakuza paid much attention to him, or did they? Apparently they did, and it wasn't the most welcome attitude. When he started his own gig, he tried to separate the world of Yami through his actions, and eventually he was successful. He was successful, but he didn't think it would spread this far. As far as he knew, Shie Hassaikai was based a little too far from Mustafi for him to appear on the radar. An hour ride by train. Either people knew about him that much, or someone from the stop who spread the word to the Yakuza. Whether it was good or bad, words didn't matter. Why do they need me? He clicked his pen a few times, anxiously crawling through his limbs. Anxiety crawling through his limbs. Knowledge is power, Yami. Knowledge is power only when you have it, and I doubt there's something I can know for the Yakuza to have benefits. He knew his stuff about heroes, about drugs and such. He mostly operated on finding people or pointing out the obvious flaws in certain groups. Sometimes gave up information on heroes he dislikes not enough information to kill them, no. He was bad, but he didn't try to be a murderer in that aspect. If someone had to die, the first time would be by his own hands. Don't underestimate yourself, Yami. Oh, I'm not. Trust me. He didn't doubt his word, nor did he play it higher than it actually was. He knew there was a middle ground, where the middle ground was. He knew his abilities and what he could gather and what he couldn't. That was a principle of why he worked so well. He knew which deals to take because he knew if he could be able to do it or not. So, Shie Hassaikai, what do they want? That is for you to find out, and as I don't know. Gurren smiled. Of course. He wouldn't. If the Yakuza were smart, they wouldn't tell Gurren unnecessary stuff. This makes it stupidly hard, but not new. He tried to go in blind. He probably gathered stuff from the Hassaikai beforehand, but perhaps the snooping around would have him walking on edges in the future. Who knew how much Yakuza watched his every move? Even now, they could be watching his response and deducting whether they would shoot him in the head or not. He wouldn't be surprised at all if he walked out nursing a new scar. Yami. Izuku looked at a man who came closer to him, smile gone once again. I shouldn't be exactly telling you this on the line, but the Hassaikai has been taking a large interest in Trigger as of late. Huh, that's very interesting. Trigger say, out of all drugs they could be dealing with, it had to be Trigger. The only drug he despises because of what it did to a human body. The only drug he actually tried to take down was a recent case he heard that had apprehended. The case he had helped put together and left Eraserhead to pick up on the roof. Trigger. He definitely wondered if this was reason he had been asked for. No one exactly knew. It was Yami who shut down the group. If Izuku had to guess, the police didn't expose their sources for the fear they would be eradicated by the villains for spreading information. But people still talked, and people knew Yami. I'm sure you're more than familiar with this type of drug, Yami. What are you insinuating, Garen? Izuku flicked his gaze from his nose to the man. Was he actually connected to all of the disappearance of the drug-dealing parties? If so, that would be very much against them. But then the question of why Hassaikai wanted him to got more complicated. Just baseless rumors. Right. Yami knew there was shit tons of those around him, concerning him and everything he has done. Once he heard some tugs thought he was a ghost of some sort and that people were hallucinating. It wasn't anything over the top, but he had fun scaring these exact tugs days later. Enlighten me. Many say that the underground informant Yami makes deals with certain trigger dealers for the benefit of his own quirk. Rumors also state that Yami under the influence of Trigger may come back from the dead. Deals. That's what this was about. Not that he took down the group, but make deals instead of to strengthen himself. I see. Rumors are certainly interesting. The first time he heard of it, it was certainly interesting. He didn't know how people made the connection. He'd only shown his quirk and his full capability to people he could count on his fingers. And even when he was sure a few of those people were already dead. His healing abilities were widely known even without the whole coming back from the dead thing. But he had no way to control how much people actually knew. Not often they saw a kid bleeding out and the next day walking around like nothing happened. When he had just started the whole thing, he slipped up quite often. Not going to deny then? What is there to deny, Garen, when I know my truth? He can die, yes, but it had nothing to do with Trigger, and yet it wasn't about to tell the whole world about it. So, Yami, what will it be? Garen asked, and Izuku sighed. Right. Why was he even here? To either take or deny his job. The simple answer was such a complicated question. After finding out Shie Hassaikai, he didn't want to. Trigger, drugs, dealing, he disliked that. He could look into that from the outside perspective, not worrying about getting caught because, but he knew that he was doing, but working with Shie Hassaikai, he wasn't ready for that, and yet he really needed the money. Is the pay good? I'll have to ask for half up front. We can arrange that. Jiren nods, his eye glinting in such a way he knew the man understood the meaning behind this question. Many did. No one pitied anyone for that. Money was tough to come, especially when they were on the bottom of society. Fine. You know how to find me. This better not cost me my freedom. Izuku jumped off his crate and made his way out of the warehouse. Girin bidding his goodbyes as he wandered away. This was tiring. Izuku stared at the aisles of food in front of him. Inside, a few coins left in his pocket mocked him as he picked a can of energy drink, foregoing soda for something stronger. He headed for the register. He had homework to do tonight. He paid quickly, noticing that he had enough to grab something decent tomorrow to eat. He escaped the store into a cool night air. It was quite chilly tonight, and rain was promised later, but Izuku stared outside, unsure what to do. You should head home. He really should, but he didn't feel like it. Not yet, at least. The meeting with Girin left him exhausted, and he still had his hair colored, but his contacts were out. His eyes itched so bad from the first thing he should get was contacts. He got the money. He was starting to almost certainly see the green underneath the red. The only thing keeping him safe for now was the dark of the night. He took the deal through. Was it a good deal? Probably not. Hassaikai was a group he couldn't just ghost because he found some loopholes that would have him dead. Yakuza just come for him if he ditched them because he already knew too much. He knew too much. That's really not enough for a kid your size. A voice spoke up and Izuku yelped, almost dropping his drink. He turned around to see Aizawa standing behind him, not in his hero costume, but in civilian clothes for a change, holding a bag of groceries with the logo of the shop. He had just walked out, staring right back at Izuku. How did he not notice the hero if the shop was so fucking small? And can you not sneak up on me? Izuku hissed, popping his drink open, his other hand coming to his hood and throwing over his head. Shit, his hair. Really, the worst time Aizawa could have met him. It was pretty loud. Aizawa rounded him to stand in front of Izuku. Steps loud and movements wide enough for Izuku to see each and every shift of the hero's body. He knew Aizawa was deliberately making him very noticeable, but that was not what he needed right now. Izuku shifted in a less lit up area, hoping that the shadow would hide his hair enough to make it seem natural, that his locks had gotten black out of nowhere. He knew letting Eraserhead see him like this would be once backfire. The hero could figure him out in 2 seconds, and this would drag his ass to the police station immediately. Even Aizawa had seemed rather docile at the rooftop the other night, if only because Izuku provided information for a case he knew the police had been struggling with. It was calculated. Eraserhead tolerated him enough for his own benefit for the moment. Izuku slipped up was the moment the heroes could take him by the scruff and put him in a cell like a cat on timeout after trying to steal food. Whatever. Izuku was glad he at least took out his contacts beforehand, otherwise it would have been a disaster. He could hide his hair, but his freckles were too recognizable. Those 4 very apparent dots on each of his cheeks mocked him. Have you eaten? The hero asked instead of saying anything about Izuku hiding and not looking at the hero, but the question startled Izuku. What? He glanced briefly at the hero, who simply stared at him down with no emotion on his face. You heard me. Food. He raised the bag to make his point, despite not giving Izuku any information he needed. What was the hero doing? Yes? Izuku tried, not knowing what to say. He hadn't eaten, sure, but it was almost 2 in the morning, so it wasn't that weird, though telling the hero that wasn't the best idea. He had a plan to meet Dabi and grab a quick meal there, but upon finding out Dabi went on an arson spree on the other side of town, he didn't bother breaking into his apartment for a lousy granola bar. Then I'm sure you're staring at the food aisle was just a figment of my imagination. Aizawa shifted his place, and Izuku winced. You know, he had been looking at the food section for far too long. than he should have, but he had no idea the hero was in a store thinking about it. It was late and he was tired, and he hadn't had a sip of his energy drink because Izuku decided to confront him about something like food. Whatever. Seriously, Eraserhead, are you stalking me? Not at all, the hero said, but Izuku heard a hint of sarcasm. At least the hero was aware of how ridiculous their meetup seemed, although it was only the third one for Izuku and Aizawa, but they seemed to blur together for him. I'll believe you when I see you less than twice a week, Izuku mumbled, staring at his drink, taking a large gulp. Oh yeah, that's the shit. This is the first time we met in the 7 days. Aizawa looked up at him with his eyebrow raised. Izuku sighed. Yeah, Yami and Izuku, 2 different people. Wasn't his fault the hero appeared almost everywhere he went. Forget it, Izuku mumbled, turning to walk away from the front of the store they seemed to be stuck at. He had to go home, and if he had decided between staying out or having Eraserhead breathe down his neck and staying at his quiet house, reminded of everything he'd done, and he'd choose the latter. He liked Eraserhead, but only when he wasn't being a pain in the ass or threatening Izuku's freedom. Come on, kid. There's a 24/7 ramen place around the corner. Aizawa called out and Izuku stopped. What? Huh? Food, I'll treat you. He gestured Izuku to follow him. No, you don't have to do that. I already ate. Even if his body was screaming for food, he didn't want to be around a hero more than necessary. Kid, just looking at you, I can see you haven't gotten proper nutrition. Also, didn't I tell you the first time we met that you had a case of weeping wallet, which implies you're struggling with money? Izuku narrowed his eyes. What right did the hero have to talk about his financial situation? We're all adults like this, thinking they could just say something and just because they were older. And you should stop analyzing my life. Who knows? Maybe it's just my allowance that I'm low on. My mother is feeding me, all right? He hissed. The Izuku Midoriya I know has not a living mother for the last 1.5 years. Izuku froze. What? No, wait. You... He gulped, not believing what he just heard. You looked me up? What the fuck? Kid. Aizawa wins. Good. Izuku couldn't believe the hero. He, of course, hated that he was always following him around and it interfered with his work and put a shit ton of things at risk. He didn't want to get caught, but damn, this wasn't it. A part of him was glad Aizawa cared. A part of him wanted to go with the hero to eat and have a nice meal for once, but the part disappeared as soon as Aizawa opened his mouth. He knew the hero would look him up. Sooner or later, the hero would look him up with a worried glance and remind himself that he needed to check the kid out just in case. And Izuku didn't exactly blame him for it, but telling him outright that he went and looked Izuku up despite having the possibility to just ask him instead. He went on and looked the shit up because he couldn't ask questions like a normal human. Don't kid me. That shit is an invasion of my privacy, and even as a pro hero, you have the right to do so doesn't mean it makes it fucking okay. We just met 2 times and thinking you have the right to analyze my life. I said, knowing Aizawa could hear the way his throat closed up familiarly. Shit, he's about to cry. He would have answered Aizawa at some point. He knew if the hero was persistent enough, Izuku would have given in at some point and told him some parts of his life because he had no one to console him and no one he knew he was struggling with. He never talked about Yami and would never get close enough to the hero to do so. But shit, he could have finally had a figure in his life that he trusted enough to tell. He didn't really know what his life about junior high because he had nowhere to go. His quirkless status was still a red line on his record despite not being the truth anymore. Izuku, listen. Aizawa tried, but Izuku shook his head with a raspy voice. He interrupted. It's Midoriya, shithead. Now leave me alone. He didn't want to. Midoriya. He tried again, but Izuku just shook his head, his hands coming to pull down his hood as much as he could, trying to hide away a few tears that escaped. He couldn't cry. He shouldn't be crying, but he was. No, go away. You just broke any trust I had in you, even though I didn't know I had any. He didn't think about it, but Aizawa felt safe. The hero Eraserhead felt safe to his ears, unlike All Might, who went from symbol to peace in his mind to a man who chose the people to save, unlike any other hero Izuku had met. Aizawa was someone who cared. Apparently, he was just as much work as anything else to do to the heroes. And hurt unreasonably. It hurt enough for Izuku to think he had a chance. He didn't know what else he was expecting. I apologize. Aizawa tried stepping closer to it, but Izuku jumped back. Please don't. It just makes me feel shittier. Hiro sighed, reaching into his pocket and a pen and paper in hand. He scribbled something down before thrusting into Izuku's field of vision, even if it was blurry because of the tears. Good night, Midoriya. Take my number. Call me if you need anything. He let the paper fall into Izuku's palm before disappearing and leaving Izuku alone. He stared at the number angrily and pushed it into his pocket. Do you think it was smart to do? Izuku lounged around on a set of emergency stairs just a few blocks from the place he met Girin, two days later, wondering if the man would accidentally meet him here and give a sign. He eventually called Dabi to tell him everything he found out. Perhaps it wasn't the smartest thing to do. Who knows? Maybe he was a target, so he shouldn't tell someone else outside the job. Yakuza would probably pull tabs on every person Yami came in contact with after. Most likely we're doing that already, but he was a teenager with dumb things, and Dabi was the only one he trusted enough to share this job. Dabi did find the job, even if it held more danger than he signed up for. But money's money. I don't know, man. Shie Hassaikai sounds like trouble. Dabi's didn't sound worried at all, but Izuku knew the guy, and he was ready to save Izuku any moment. Maybe he felt bad about bringing his job up and putting it on Izuku's table for grabbing. You tell me. It wasn't really short. If I wasn't short on money, I might have declined. Izuku ran a hair through his hair, sighing. It was a long night, and he should be getting home. He hadn't slept the night before, and it was really taking a toll on him. Tomorrow was school again. He'd rather not sleep in late and make a bigger target on his back than usual by being late. Teachers were already lowering his grade as it because of his stupid decision about UA. He should go ask to change it to his third option or something. Maybe teachers would be more merciful in his lack of homework. He really got on their nerves, even though he handled most of it today. They were never pleased with him. And the whole Yakuza on your ass? Izuku laughed. Okay, yeah, Dabi had a point. Probably, but that's beside the point, Dabi. He smiled. Thank you. Whoa. Metal beam embedded into the wall just by his side, one hitting his leg, the other pretty much running through it, making him scream. Shit, that hurt. You alright? Dabi stressed from his end. Izuku looked around, noticing a hero standing at the end of the alley, with a huge grin on his face. He didn't recognize the steel beam throwing guy, but he thought someone like him would even catch Izuku's gaze in any other day. I think I might need to call back. He gritted from pain. This wasn't ideal at all. Need help? Izuku heard shuffling from the other side. Dabi probably getting up and ready to go save his moaning, miserable ass. Nah, it's fine. I have a bat with me. Izuku chose a weapon he had placed on the ground by his feet. He was very much glad he had dragged actions up to find this gem of trash pile. A what? Call me later. Bye. He put his phone down, pocketing it safely, hoping it wouldn't fall out. He glanced down at his leg, bleeding out fast. Izuku was glad the metal beam wasn't much longer than his forearm. It didn't get in the way of moving around, but damn, it hurt. He looked at Hiro, narrowing his eyes, adjusting his mask. You know, it's not good manners to attack without warning. Izuku glanced at the steel beams in the walls, longer than the one in his leg. The metal didn't seem at all that strong. Maybe copper? As they slightly bent, entering the wall, he pursed his lips, looking at the hero who already threw another beam at him. Don't care, kid, you're coming with me. The hero grinned, swinging back and letting the beam sail directly at him. Once again, Izuku shot up, catching the broken part of the stairs above his head and pulling him inside with one hand. Okay, that was harder than he thought it would be. He needed to work out more and definitely eat. Maybe the hole in the leg didn't help much. I am? No one told me. He looked around if he could get any other roof. If you get to the other roof, he would probably be able to jump a few buildings over. If you remember correctly, there was a small escape tunnel down a few buildings that was shielded away from the alleyways and street. It led to a very narrow path connected to a shabby bar. You just need to get over there, shut your trap, and surrender. The hero rushed towards him, and his quirk making a steel beam right out of his hand and pushing up the same emergency stairs he was staying on. Shit, he had to move fast. The beam on his leg caught on something and ripped the wound. He cursed under his breath and held down a scream that he wanted to push out. Even if he didn't die, the pain was still a thing. Nah, that's too easy. Izuku grinned. A smile lopsided under his mask. He guided the broken stairs as high as they could go before reaching at the ledge of a window sill, jumping off the stair. His arms strained before he dug his back into the building, hitting it onto an uneven brick, and pushing himself up the crutch on the window sill. It was narrow as fuck, but at least he was far away from the hero. He rested his wounded leg over the edge, and the pain pushing kept him alarmed. Why do you want me anyway? He looked his gaze at the hero still underneath him, his gaze wandering around, most likely trying to find a way to trap him. You're Yami, right? The hero made another round of steel bars, just smaller this time and thinner. He swirled in his hands. Izuku followed the movement with his own grip tightening on the bat. As far as I know, he laughed, holding his bat close. Well, you're a wanted criminal now, and there's a big warrant for your capture. The hero grinned and jumped. Izuku yelped, leaping back on the stairs. The hero right behind him, and he bit his lip. At the pain, he got himself on the roof, pushing all the strength he had in his leg to grab the edge of the roof. He hauled himself up. The hero quickly got on his feet, climbing right after him. It's not the wound he would be out of there already. It's always from the heroes, but he had no choice to fight him and hope he had enough strength to knock him out. Right, money. Izuku sighed. When it wasn't about money to heroes. In that case, I'll have to disappoint you and not give up. Izuku rushed at the hero, swinging his bat. He missed, but he wasn't aiming anyway. Or at least, he told himself that because he ran his foot because he ran his foot, dragged by his side, making him stumble, almost fall face first into concrete. Yeah, he wasn't really aiming. That's right, I'll capture you anyway. The hero grabbed a hold of his hoodie and swung him around. Izuku screamed as he was sent flying. He landed on his side. The thing is like shifting. Fucking hell! Looking around, Izuku noted there was a lot of broken roof pieces lying around. He grunted and getting up. That's cute. He gasped out and threw a piece of debris, nailing the hero in the head. Hey! A laugh bubbled out of Izuku's throat, sobbing as he felt the phone in pocket buzz. Dabi was most likely calling. Sorry, no capturing will be done today. He laughed again. Damn, was he on adrenaline or pain? It wasn't sure anymore. He took another piece of concrete and threw it at the hero again. You little... Whoa, calm down, big guy. Izuku stumbled away from the oncoming hero. He pushed through the pain, his leg not working that well anymore. But the wound had started to close up tightly a bit and wasn't bleeding as much anymore. If you could just stay still, you little shit. Izuku circled away from the hero as he got more frustrated. You're a hero, aren't you? That's not nice to say. Izuku taunted, leaning on his bat and glanced down his leg. Probably should pull the thing out, but it would make him bleed again, and he'd probably faint from the blood loss. Come back here, the hero rushed him, and Izuku sighed. It was now or never. I don't think I will. I need to go, so we'll have to cut our chase short. Thank you for this wonderful night, and good night, he muttered under his breath, ducking it under the hero hold and swinging his bat hard as he could on the hero's head, hearing a sickening crack, his arms shaking as the hero fell to the ground. Izuku looked down at him. Fuck. He picked up a buzzing phone in his pocket, answering it with a second thought. Dabi? He breathed out through the pain. I think I fucked up, he said, looking at the hero bleeding right in front of him. He really fucked up. Chapter 7. The Haunted and Wishful. Takashi had his nose pinched for the moment. Aizawa stepped into the station. Takashi, he greeted the tired detective, who looked at him with a sigh. The night following call had been rough. Both of them had different reasons. Aizawa had always pushed to look out for the troublesome teenager more than initially, though. As far as he knew, Takashi had been fighting up the higher-ups for days now. Thank God, Aizawa, this situation is bad. He collapsed on his chair, a loud groan eliciting a worried gaze from his co-worker. There's no surprise. As far as Aizawa heard, the higher-ups were a bunch of idiots who threatened the kid like some S-grade villain, which was totally unnecessary. I've heard some things here and there, and what he heard wasn't that good. Yami was more involved in the villain world than he had initially thought. He wasn't seen as a troublesome teenager villain who caused havoc whenever he went and stuck his curious nose where he shouldn't have anymore. But the stance shifted to view him as a full-fledged villain. Aizawa did not wish to put him in a spot that made him treat the kid as such. He knew Yami wasn't a villain like the higher-ups wanted them to believe. This was simply no way. He's been a prominent presence for quite a bit. A few months before he came up on our radar, but damn it. Aizawa, the shit he's done? As much as Hiro didn't want to admit to be listening to Takashi's list off of most recent endeavors of the said teenagers, his hope to get the kid out safely left him slowly. If they could have easily gotten the kid out with a simple remedial course of social norms, then now a prison sentence would be the easiest way he could get out of it. if freedom was even a choice. What are the higher ups thinking? Aizawa sighed. You know that you know what they were thinking. Seize the kid, get him locked up till he turns 30. That's how the world operates. It was a shitty system, but the government didn't care about kids when they needed help. They just saw a villain and ran with it. Kids needed help, not some cells to rot away for the rest of their lives in. It applied for any other individual in a ramp as well. The treatment of society in certain demographics of people was absolute shit. No wonder they ran around trying to make a living in a normal, morally gray way. If the society had them pushed out of this. They placed a hefty sum on his head. All the police stations around Japan have been notified and kept alert in his case as he moved. The heroes in Mustafa had been brief and were more to report immediately if they saw him. Around Japan, the kid only moved around Mustafa. Why involve the whole country? I don't get it. He couldn't have possibly done something so bad that they have so many people mobilized. Aizawa rubbed his eyes. Exactly. That bothers me, Aizawa. I'm sure the higher-ups know something we don't. Tsukashi rubbed the back of his head and their eyes meet. Understanding flashing between both of them. The government only really bothered if they had something to gain. Otherwise, they wouldn't have given 2 cents about the kid. It would be fine with him being locked up with other villains. Something was definitely up. That complicates things. Right. You think you'll get him to trust you now that every hero around him is on him? It will be soon until he catches up to what's happening. I hope he'll lay low for that time being until it settles to something reasonable. Aizawa chuckles, as if Yami would. As far as he knew, the kid never sat still. If he wasn't being a menace to society or the police, he was just moved around the underground, leaving his trace here and there, just enough to remember it, but not found. Aizawa feared the day he'd be found. The day Yami slipped up was all over, and Aizawa would have to watch the kid being stripped of everything and thrown into prison or whatever the government wanted to do with him. He hoped he would get the kid before that happened. With the help of Tsukashi, maybe, hopefully he would be able to pull Yami out of whatever's happening. The door slammed open and a cat-like police officer rushing and panting. Sansa. Detective, sir. Yami has been spotted. Aizawa was on his feet, rushing to the door, shooting after himself. Send me the coordinates, I'm going. Right. This was his opportunity. Izuku stumbled across rooftop, still bleeding out, but he was almost at the bar where he could hopefully slip through without gathering attention. He didn't look like the best deal for some overgrown children trying to pick a fight, but he did actually know the bar that granted the VIP pass, which essentially meant he could break habit without consequences. He'd been thrown out of many bars for him to count because he was such a little shit, but the right information, the right words, some bars owners didn't mind him coming and going whenever the fuck he wanted. He slid the door open, listening, and it was definitely loud, which meant it was crowded as shit. Good and bad. Good because he could slip through without gathering attention. Bad because going through the stature of bleeding leg was going to be a challenge. He hoped Dabi would hurry his ass the fuck up. He kept the door open, pushing through the bodies as gently as he could. Someone was pushing their disgusting stomach into their face. He showed the man as disgusting stomach into his face. He shoved the man away. The man let out a loud yell and then went to drawing attention to himself idea. He hissed, ducking his head when someone tried to reach him. He stumbled to the side, knocking his shoulder into the wall. He hated how small he was. Watch where you're going, someone hissed at him. Izuku yelled out a sorry, bumping into another guy and tried to get through the crowd. Why were there so many people here? Usually they were more spread through the bar. As far as Izuku knew, this bar was at least two other rooms, and no way the rest of the rooms were all this crowded as well. He bumped into another guy who snarled at him and reached for his hoodie. Pulled and Izuku was flying. He knew that he was small, and he was down a leg, but he didn't think he'd pull and flick from a guy two times his size. He would have him falling through a door. He was sure it was for a private meeting, and to his luck, the room was occupied. This explained the bar crowdedness, but that's beside the point. He landed hard on his back, crashing before breaking a cheap stool. It may be cheap, but would hurt no matter what. Izuku coughed, looking back at the door, seeing the guy wanting to come in, but stopping once he realized where they were. Izuku got the interrupting private meetings. No one did that, including Izuku, but here he was sprawled on the floor, bleeding out and looking at the third occupants off the room, his stomach twisted. Yami? Giran? Oops, this was definitely where he shouldn't be. The other man, clearly in the middle of talking to Giran, looked up at his eyes lit with fire. Oh hell, well fuck. Hello. Izuku laughed, getting up and brushing off the dust gathering on his clothes. He grimaced as his leg decided to finally pull out the bar and clutch it with the other hand. He bit his lip, getting a rod out clean, just causing some more bleeding and black spots in Izuku's eyes. He giggled. Well, this was new. What the fuck happened? Giran hissed out, his eyes flicking between Izuku and the other guy. Izuku looked down at himself and grimaced. Why was he laughing anyway? He had no idea. He wasn't the most presentable, and a bloody bat in one hand and a bully copper rod in the other, bleeding out of his leg and covered in blood himself, hair all over the place, mask holding on to dear life. And he giggled with more, staggering backwards with a slight fuzziness. Must have hit his head. Yeah, that must be it. Izuku cleared his throat, wincing, and roamed his gaze around the room, noting that some bar occupants were peering into the room, eyes filled with curiosity. Some were spurring. Why was their child bleeding out laughing? Izuku turned his head, waving the people with the bat, and turned back to Giran and the other guy with some small kid, a person with him. They both had a mask, bird-like, one that was commonly associated with the plague. Wait, he knew those masks. Shie, Hassaikai? He noted the other man standing up and humming to himself, his gaze flickering all over Izuku. It made him very uncomfortable. It felt like he was being analyzed and put on the spot. How much he was worth. What could he do? And so on. Izuku didn't like being on a receiving end of eyes that stared in someone's soul. You're Yami? The man finally growled out, his voice low, obscured by the mask, but Izuku still heard him loud and clear. The disgust in his voice was evident. Sure am, Izuku bowed briefly. It wasn't out of respect, no, it was just pure spite and cockiness, and he should one day knock out of himself. It never ended well. The people outside the room seemed to have heard his name this time. A small gasp ran out and whispered intensely. No one still dared to enter the room. Izuku sighed, shifting his leg, and he really needed to lay down. You're a kid, the man pointed out, as if he didn't know that. Jeez. Well, I'm sure you knew what you were getting into when sending Giran after me. Izuku chuckled, tapping his back against his good leg. Overhaul, don't be so quick to judge. Giran spoke up after staying silent. His eyes flickered to Izuku. Overhaul, huh? Tilted his head. I grinned as a thank you. Information was given to him so easily. At least he wouldn't have to dig for hours just for a name. I didn't expect a literal teenager, obviously lacking manners. He gazed snap on Izuku's bleeding leg, which was stained on the floor, and lifted and laughing. Listen, dude, overhaul, whatever. We can easily break the deal off, but I kinda really need the money, so you'll have to deal with me. He waved his bat. Plus, I did bow, my manners are excellent. I would extend a hand for a shake, but I'm rather occupied. He brought both of his hands waving around, small splatter of blood landing on the floor around him. Oops. Overhaul's eyes snapped to the mess he made, and Izuku put his hands down quickly. Izuku didn't want to reply and bowed again. Now, gentlemen, if you'll excuse me, I have places to be. He turned the door and winked at them and left, leaving a trail of blood in his wake. But at least people parted a path to the door before the bloody bat and rod in his hands. People whispered around him, watching him carefully with a careful eye. Surely his name must have been spread around from the few guys that stood listening to their conversation. Overhaul said he didn't have manners. Obviously, he obviously didn't look at others. Izuku successfully made his way through the crowd, thankfully for not stumbling even once due to pain that was creeping up in his leg and starting to running in his hip. Infection probably, maybe even sepsis. Ugh, those sure work fast through their body. He neared the bar door and one guy not moving but staring at him down with bros fire. Hey, big guy, wanna move a little? Izuku asked, trying to reach the door, but the guy didn't move, only grunted and Izuku sighed. Must it always be this hard? Could he just have one day without being threatened or have difficulties getting somewhere? You're Yami, the famous informator who's taking the underground by storm. The guy grunted instead, raising his eyebrow as well. Okay, he would love to chit-chat, but Izuku was sure Dabi would be here any minute and he need to go home. Would change anything if I said yes? I'm sure the guys always spread what they want to hear in the room. I don't know why you're making this more difficult than it should be. Izuku tried the door again tried for the door once again. The other guy just stood in front of him, normal size for one. Just tall and well-shredded. Didn't know Yami was a small kid. The other guy laughed, earning a few chuckles from people around him. Izuku nodded to himself, and yeah, he got that. This small guy, he pointed to himself, just pulled a copper rod out of his leg because it was getting in his way. If you don't let me walk out of this bar right now, I will shove the same rod so far up your ass you'll see how funny that is. Izuku hissed. It wasn't necessarily intimidating, but pulling something out of yourself wasn't exactly number one on people's list of entertainment. Everyone knew that once something was, it was hell, and it was hell to get out and not bleeding at all. Izuku knew pain, and he knew that it wasn't played around with, so he moved forward, striking the rod against the smaller guy, making him bend forward, clutching his stomach. Izuku leaned forward, his ears tapping the rod against the man's shoulder. Izuku knew pain and knew that it wasn't played around with, so he moved forward, striking the rod against the smaller guy, making him bend forward, clutching his stomach. Izuku leaned forward, his ears tapping the rod against the man's shoulder. If this hurts, imagine it going through your stomach. He turned around, looking at the occupant of the room. Remember, piss me off, and the next thing you'll see is a prison cell. I don't get angry easily, but I swear to God, right now, I'm not here to play games. He bowed and mocked respect and added, and rumors of me apparently coming back from the dead would trigger, well, it's not like I haven't already. The door was clear as Izuku staggered his way out. His smile slipped off his face, and the metal door clicked shut behind him. Arms shook as he leaned against the brick wall. Izuku swayed on his feet and was starting to feel the blood loss. The whole walking and running around didn't help the healing process as much. He cursed under his breath, waiting for Dalby to finally put his speed behind his run to come get him. Otherwise, he'd pass out in the alley and maybe die from infection that was burning his leg. But hey, what else was new? His gaze swayed, and it was starting to get dark. Shit. It's been a while since he fainted. Wouldn't be surprised if... It's been a while since he fainted. It wouldn't be fun to collapse in the middle of a random alley beside a bar who knew many people occupied and would want to pick a fight with him in a few minutes. He wouldn't be surprised. Kid? Izuku froze. Oh no. No, it couldn't be. He looked up and he stared at Aizawa, looking at him, eyes dancing between his legs. The bat and a stupid rod he still held on, but all covered in blood. Hey, Izuku lazily greeted. The hero took a step back. Aizawa didn't know if he lost his balance there or almost fell. Are you okay? The hero gaze stayed on his leg mostly, which starting to get numb and pain starting to seep deeply inside his hip. Oh fuck. Magnificent, he smiled. Not that anyone else saw that he did, just added the effect of his own stupidity and thought was confidence. Let me help you. Eraserhead tried to come close to Izuku, but Izuku jumped back, his leg tangling in as he tripped and almost went down. Didn't I tell you to go away? Izuku slurred out, ah, fuck. He did tell Aizawa that, but shit, he was Yami now. He had to remember he was Yami now, and telling something like that just clue in the hero about his real identity. He didn't need Eraserhead on his ass more than necessary. Every time he repeated that in his head like a mantra, and yet each and every time he felt like he was failing at keeping himself away from the hero. Kid, let me bandage your leg. Aizawa didn't stop, didn't even bat an eye at his comment. At least he didn't show that he was surprised what he said. No, it's fine, I'll heal. Izuku tried, but he barely standing as it is, which didn't add to his reply at all. You'll bleed out before that happens. Eraser hissed, eyes meeting Izuku with a fierce emotion. Izuku stopped briefly, taking a breath. Wasn't he angry at the hero? Would be funny. He laughed with a breath he let out, which just sounded like he was choking on saliva. He would most likely bleed out soon. The bleeding hasn't stopped that much. Just a little. Crusting around the edges. Since when did injuries take this long to heal? Was the hero he hit bleeding like this too? But their injuries were different. Izuku's bleeding out from puncture, while the guy just simply got hit. Wait, shit, I left him on the rooftop. Izuku groaned. Damn it. What are you talking about? Eraserhead asked, reaching out for him, and this time Izuku didn't have the strength to jump back or do anything. Aizawa held an arm as Izuku fought back and wanted to collapse into the hero's arms. He was still very much offended by the hero had done about his civilian's identity. That sort of thing didn't go away easy. Didn't get easily forgotten, even if it was the anger even if the anger had seeping out the very next moment as the hero left him that night. He didn't know how to hold grudges against people he looked up to, even if he hadn't realized that. Ugh, a hero attacked me. Eraserhead adjusted his grip on him and make Izuku leaning not the hero regardless if he wanted to or not. Izuku really didn't have the strength to complain. and I kinda bashed his skull with my bat and he started bleeding, and I don't know if it's because the head wound bleeds so easily or if I really fucked up there. He sighed. He didn't entirely mean to knock the guy out, it just stunned him enough to get away. You know, hit and run tactic or whatever, it worked obviously, but maybe too well. Pain and adrenaline high were wearing down his muscles more than needed. He was practically too strong or ripped. He wasn't practically too strong or ripped. He could pack a mean swing when he wanted. I don't know which I'm more comfortable with, he mumbled. If he dies, I know that I didn't. If he died, know that I didn't mean to. Izuku lifted his head, staring at the hero who pressed his lips together, almost as if he had nothing to say. Maybe he didn't. Izuku dropped the rod he'd been carrying, reaching the wall, and pushed at the hero to let him go. Aizawa complied, though his hands were hovering on his sides nonetheless. The hero told him that he should sit down so he could bandage his leg up finally, but Izuku just shook his head no. Yami? A shout reached his ear and looked sideways, his whole body tipped forward and lay. Fuck! Dobby rushed by his side, catching him the last moment, his bread ragged. Damn it, Yami, what the fuck? Dobby pulled him up and Izuku chuckled. Look who I'm at! Izuku met the hero's eyes again, and Dobby whispered a soft fuck, adjusting his grip on Izuku. Are you high? Dobby asked, instead of raising his eyebrow, giggling through half the lala. I don't know, but I'm like this close to passing out. He showed 2 fingers touching. And I think I'm gonna cry, so can you just, get us somewhere where I can just sit down before I have a whole ass breakdown in front of a hero? I really kinda still respect you, you know? Izuku mumbled before promptly passing out now that he knew he'd be fine. He may respect Aizawa and may feel safe with him, but as Yami, he only trusted Dabi to black out completely. Eraserhead might mean good or whatnot, but he didn't know what his intentions were. Heroes were still heroes, and no matter who they were, and the heroes didn't treat criminals like him with patience and care, especially when the words had spread around, and apparently he had been hunted down. Fun. You okay there, buddy? Izuku groaned, rolling onto the couch as he put on the scent of burn, made it known that it was Dobby's apartment. Why do I feel like shit? Izuku cracked his eyes open, reaching to gently scrub at them. His whole body ached, especially his leg, but he didn't feel as dizzy as the last time he was conscious. Izuku sat up grimacely, encrusted blood all over him. Now, how will he get all this shit off? He had no idea. Because you healed the wound that made you pass out from blood loss. As far as I know, you've been running on 4 hours of sleep in the past 3 days. Dabi threw a bottle of water at him. Izuku fumbled catching it, the sight of it hitting him in the face, and rubbed his cheek, glaring daggers at Dabi, who chuckled. Izuku took a deep swing of the water, relishing in the cooler temperature. His pouch throat very much thankful for the liquid. He squinted, looking through the window, and then remembered it being dark. Shit, what time is it? His mind wired as became more aware of whatever life was. Sometime after midday. Dabi shrugged his shoulders as Izuku realized that today was very much not the weekend and he was very much not in school right now. Fuck, school. He mumbled, standing up, his sight becoming dark for a brief moment, and then he looked around for his stuff, ignoring Dobby's gaze. He didn't want to think about whatever happened earlier, how he would explain himself to his friends right now. Indeed, fuck school. Dobby hummed, not getting Izuku at all. No, I miss school. Izuku looked at Dobby finally. I thought you didn't care about school. Dobby smiled with a lazy smirk on his face. I don't, but teachers have been on my ass lately, and I can't have them thinking I'm deliberately not showing up. Izuku gazed up and sat back down on the couch, with his fingers fumbling with the bottle, opening and closing it. The skin was dry, very much crusty, and it should feel extremely gross, but he couldn't find it in himself to care right now. Hygiene be damned, he had to process the last 24 hours, or maybe more. He wasn't sure how much information his mind struggled with. Days tended to blur together at some point. It was honestly a miracle he hadn't passed out at school these recent weeks. Stuff had been getting complicated and Izuku was very much tired. I see. Nabi nodded and Izuku sighed. He bit his lip, squeezing his eyes shut as an unwelcoming image entered his mind. He groaned, feeling the burn of tears, but suppressed it. Fuck, what happened yesterday? He let out a wet chuckle, his gaze snapped all over the floor. Was he even sane at this point? He fought a hero. Oh my god, is he alive? Izuku gasped. Right. He wasn't sure if the hero even lived. It would really suck if he didn't. Not that he knew where they were after him, because he had been found or something, whatever that meant. Killing a hero wasn't ideal at all in his situation. As far as I know, yes. Dabi shifted his chair and kicking his legs out with on a small table between them. Izuku watched the man get comfy. He clearly saw how tense his shoulders were, and Izuku felt awful. Good. Izuku nodded, looking at his friends. Sorry, continue? He whispered, knowing that Dabi understood that he was saying sorry more than just for interrupting him. Izuku was very good with his words, but Dabi knew him to be fair share of apologies or whatever. He had done, even if it hadn't really meant for those things to escalate. Really, Izuku more often than not minded his own business, but it just so happened other people couldn't, and whenever Izuku got burnt up, Dabi was there to haul his ass back each and every time. Right, Dabi chuckled, but it was dry and hollow. Izuku wins. Then you ran through a bar, caused chaos, and half the town talking about Yami showing up bloody like he just murdered someone. Dabi laughed and with great amusement in his voice. It was funny to some degree. Izuku would vaguely remember threatening the guy with some rod up his ass or something like that. It gave you some wicked reputation, Dabi grinned. That's nice, I guess. Izuku didn't need more information he already had. It would make things more complicated, especially now that both sides were watching his every step. He'd probably have trouble walking around at night knowing how many would want to have a word with him, which would either be up with some hero worship he didn't need, or would be left beaten up in some random alley to call Dabi once again because he needed help. He really needed to stop making Dabi work twice as much. The man already had his own problems to deal with. After that, you met Eraserhead. I don't know what you two talked about, but when I came to get you, you literally passed out the next second. Dabi continued, which Izuku hummed. Eraserhead. Yeah, he remembers meeting Aizawa again. Like a manic draw to each other. Then they met every other night or whatever poetic ass stuff there was. Izuku rubbed his eyes again. There was another swig of the bottle and sighed. He really should stop his dates with the hero and tell him to fuck off. Oh wait, he already did, but the hero just didn't listen, although two different identities might be a fault, but you should work on his approach. How did you get away from Eraserhead with me as dead weight? Izuku raised his eyebrow at Dabi, who simply shrugged, inspecting his nails with no biggie. He let us go. Izuku stared. What? I'm just as surprised as you are. Eraserhead let out a long sigh and just turned away, telling me to take care of you or whatever that meant. Izuku snorted. Very Eraserhead-like. The word care means being good to someone who required help, Izuku explained to annoy his matter. Ouch, I get it. He rubbed his shoulder, which had been target of Dabi's own bottle of water. He took the bottle and hid it away behind himself. Now Dabi wouldn't be getting his bottle back. Served him right. Do you remember anything you talked to him about? Dabi asked instead of getting annoyed, which startled Izuku a little, but he liked the stupid banter. The not serious talk with people. He was bad with being serious, especially people who knew more about him than realistically wished. I think I started panicking. I told him I hit the hair on the roof, and he tried to help me, but I told him to fuck off again. He hadn't exactly told him, but it was implied along with the conversation. At least Izuku thought that. I had a hard time remembering the conversation word for word, but he was there like 3 minutes before passing out, and his memories was hazy as fuck. Again? Yeah, remember how I said he met my other identity? Izuku rubbed his hand together. I'm sure if you should say this, yeah. I've seen him a total of 6 times. 3 as Yami and 3 as real me. And oh my god. Izuku gasped, rubbing his eyes again. What's up? My eyes hurt like shit. He groaned. And they really did, and Izuku briefly taught about the fact that he still had his contacts in. Yeah, I took out your contacts or not. He opened his bleary eyes, tears gathered in the corner. At least his tears would be counted for irritated eyes. Yeah, I took out your contact. Oh, wait. You what? Izuku rasped out his mind, finally analyzing Dabi had said. So he was sitting with his green eyes, no mask on his face, and hair was most likely fading from the spray. He'd done this shit job with his previous night because he was rushing, and all the fighting and dragging himself through people hadn't helped. That he was sure of. Sorry, but your eyes looked a bit red, so I took them out. Izuku watched as Dabi shifted his seat again, and even denser than previously. That's fine, Izuku said, I think. It was pretty much sitting as Izuku right in front of Dabi now. In front of a villain who would remember how he looked like in a civilian and ruin him in mere minutes. Not that he thought Dabi would do that. He wasn't like that, at least as far as Izuku knew. But he could never trust anyone under 100% here. It was a game with death, a gamble more so where he always lost when he trusted. It was a slippery slope of trusting too much and not enough. Currently, they were very uncomfortably sitting between those two words, but it seemed to be tipping. I think I need to go to school. I need to go home. Izuku gulped down the ball of emotions in his throat and stood up, shaking off the numb feeling in his limbs. Not liking my couch? Dabi joked, trying to cheer him up, but Izuku's words simply swayed. Things he said and done coming back to him bits by bits. Well, it was too much. It's nice, just need to reflect on my life a little. He shook his head, catching the side of his bat, taking it in a loose grip. When people look at him as he went home, it was the middle of the day after all, and he'd surely get enough weird stares if he took the most discreet pat home as he could. You okay? Dabi stood up and was resting one hand on Izuku's shoulder, growing him briefly. Izuku took a deep breath, shakily letting it out. No, he wasn't okay. Honestly, Dabi, I hate that I have this quirk, he mumbled, because he did. He did because he didn't want to deal with whatever shit he gotten himself into. Usually it was fun. Usually he didn't pass out from blood loss because he fucked up so bad. There was a horde of heroes after him. Usually his actions then caused him to near full-on breakdown later on because he'd never been this stupid and acted like a total kid. Yami. Dabi slid off his hand and Izuku just laughed. Okay, I won't do anything stupid. He's already done that as it was. It was more stupid. What more stupid could he do? If he could die, would that debatable? If he could die, that would be debatable. But when he couldn't, trying to strangle himself felt like an unnecessary waste of time. He could pass out, wake up 10 minutes later, and then what? Clean up the mess of accidentally made because he fell on a table? No, Izuku didn't want to do that again. With how empty he felt afterwards, it was ridiculous how much work dying took. You always say that, and the next thing I know, I'm hauling your ass across the town. Dabi sighed, going back to his chair. His voice sounded exhausted, and Izuku winced. Right. What he had been saying, Dabi was always doing things for him, as Izuku ran around rampant, because he had no idea. He had no one to hold him on a leash, and he dared to say Kachan was someone who didn't know how to control himself and had a god complex. Izuku just took a look to himself one day and reevaluated everything he had done, and said the other becoming much more hypocrite. He was such a hypocrite. I'm sorry, he said. He really meant it. Dabi stayed silent as Izuku escaped his apartment. What was he even doing this at all for? He collapsed on his bed before going for a shower once again. It's not like he'd actually done his laundry, washed anything, so what did it matter? Tears welled up in his eyes, and he laughed to himself. What the fuck was this? What was going on? What the hell was he doing? Making friends, thinking Eraserhead was somewhat cool, playing with the hero with the police and villain with Jiren next, having friends at tea parties with Dabi. The guy would turn on Izuku any moment, or vice versa. This could be no hard feelings because it was simply how the world worked. Why was he doing this anyway? For the money? Yeah, whatever he counted. Yet none of that felt quite okay. Yeah, he sighed and took a deep breath and wiped his tears away. He could question himself another day. Now he had a job to do, or get ready for rather. He had a job to do, or get ready for rather. He met the man over hall, the head of it all. He didn't have his objective or anything, but it itched to gather some more information as he could on this man. Be prepared to be thrown into a room, but with no way to escape and find his way out, because he wasn't going into this blind. He's been negotiating this side of his job, running around for fun or whatever, but he ended it and got back his head in the game, or this would not end up well. He threw his shitty clothes in a hamper, grimacing at all the blood. He didn't know if he'd been able to get it all out, but because those were his favorite pairs of pants, so he would try extra hard. His shoes lay in a tub. Had thrown him in there right away. They were soaked through with blood, and as the boots were already red, the damage could not be seen that much. But he knew if he didn't take care of those he would be barefoot soon enough. Vaguely, he thought the fact that he might be wearing those shoes all the time he'd met Aizawa. Would that tip the hero off? And they weren't uncomfortable, right? Maybe. He rubbed his hair as he pulled out one tangle that had hair ripped out of his skull. He needed to wash this out and maybe get a haircut. The locks were getting long, and he'd probably be able to tie his hair into a small bun soon. Not that he preferred it. Long hair was tedious, especially when it was thick and unruly as his. Izuku got in the shower anyway, despite the initial want to rot away on his bed, scrubbing all parts of himself, wishing he had one of those better shampoos than his third cheap 3-in-1 shampoo that did a piss poor job at taking the bad curls of blood and dirt out of his skin. Maybe then overhaul paid him and he'd invest in something nicer. If he kept going like this, the water ran pink for a while, then mixed with a brief gray, and then started finally running clear. At that time it had gotten cold, and Izuku was shivering under the spray. Nothing new, but still unpleasant. Next were his clothes. He soaked them in the cold water. Going through his room, he changed into something reasonable. Finding his last pair of clean sweatpants, Izuku paused and looked at a shirt he had. One clean all-white shirt and one clean Kamino wood shirt. Once upon a time, that all-white shirt used to be his favorite, but this time changed. He reached for the Kamui wood one, throwing the other shirt deeper into the closet. Once upon a time, his room was filled with all-white merch, but he'd gotten rid of it long ago. Even if he got rid of it long before he even met the man and realized how wrong he was on him. Money had been tight, and his collectionary stuff went for a good price. And proof the next thing he knew was looking at his wall slightly later place, where the posters used to be, shelves empty, buried, only clothes reminiscent of the collection. Even then, the all-made stuff met the trash after that day. Cleaning everything up felt somewhat euphoric. Getting rid of dirt and blood had him nearly bursting into tears. Sitting down on his computer, stomach rumbling for food, had been staring down at the computer screen in wonder of where he'd gone around the past few weeks, and how much more he could take. This conclusion was that. The conclusion was that, not much. Hey guys, so this is the end of this chapter. Well, these two chapters, chapter 6 and chapter 7. Sorry if I was stuttering a lot, repeating things, rereading things, and I might have yawned a few times, so I'm sorry. It's 3:23 a.m. right now, and I am literally exhausted. I don't know also if you can hear in the background, but there's mice in my ceiling right now. So if you heard clattering in the vents and shit like that, that's just the rats. I mean, mice. Because rats are bigger. Anyway, yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed. I'll be reading more tomorrow because I need to get to bed now. It is way too, I was gonna say late, but technically early. So, please don't take from example and get some sleep. And hopefully you are having a good day, morning, night, evening, afternoon, wherever you are in the world, whenever. And I hope you are doing well. Make sure to hydrate, and I love you. Mwah. Bye. Good night.